Hello there, and welcome to the Sleepy Thought Channel. Tonight we're exploring the fascinating phenomena of mind over matter, not as a saying, but as one of the most astonishing frontiers in modern science. This is the story of how thoughts, expectations, and attention can reach deep into the body, influencing pain perception, performance healing, and even the way reality itself is experienced. What was once dismissed as imagination is now being measured in brain scans, immune markers, and nerve signals, revealing effects that challenge how we think the human system truly works. Across medicine, psychology, and neuroscience, researchers keep running into the same unsettling truth. Boundary between mind and body is far thinner than we ever thought. These discoveries do not replace biology, they expand it, and in doing so, they raise questions that stretch the limits of what science can fully explain. If you enjoy these gentle journeys, I invite you to subscribe, or share a thought below. It helps others find their way here to one sleepy soul at a time. But for now, there's nothing to do but relax. Let your body soften like you're breathing slow. Allow your eyes to grow heavy and let your mind unwind as we explore this fascinating world. Let's begin. Your expectations can radically reshape what you perceive. What you expect primes your senses before the world even arrives. Pour identical wine into 2 bottles, and people describe richer flavors from the expensive label. In one classic study, a colored drink changed how sweet it seemed without changing the recipe. Your brain builds perception by combining incoming signals with prior beliefs and memories. When the guess is strong, it can override the data, producing illusions and mishearings. That is why you can suddenly notice a sound only after someone points it out. It is also why anxiety can make a normal heartbeat feel like a siren. Scientists call this predictive processing, and it turns the mind into an active editor of reality. The thrilling part is that expectations can be trained, so perception can shift with practice over a lifetime. When you change what you anticipate, you change what you notice, and your world can feel newly detailed. A fake pill can change heart rate, breathing, and hormone release. Give someone a medicine they believe is a stimulant, and their pulse may climb. Give the same person a pill they think is a sedative, and breathing can slow. In experiments, even saline injections have shifted blood pressure when framed as powerful medication. Part of this comes from conditioning, like the way your mouth waters before a familiar meal. If your body has learned that clinics mean treatment, it may start preparing early. Hormones can shift, skin can flush, and stomach muscles can tighten, all from that preparation. Researchers call this the meaning response, because context is part of the dose. White coats, pill color, and even price tags can nudge the response up or down. It is a reminder that the nervous system is always listening for cues of threat or care. When those cues suggest help is coming, the body may shift into repair mode before chemistry arrives. The placebo effect can trigger real opioid signals inside the brain. In some pain studies, people given a sugar pill still report relief within minutes. Brain imaging shows the same reward, and pain circuits light up as with real drugs. Researchers have even blocked this relief with naloxone, a medicine that stops opioid receptors that tells us the body can release its own morphine like chemicals on command. Expectation becomes a signal traveling from the thinking cortex down to brainstem control centers. Those centers can dampen incoming pain messages before they reach conscious awareness. It is not pretend relief, it is altered neurochemistry. Scientists now study how ritual, trust, and timing amplify this internal pharmacy. The effect is strongest when a person feels cared for, safe, and sure of the plan. Mind over matter begins here, with belief turning into biology. You can measure that. Discovery has pushed medicine to ask a new question. Which parts of healing come from within? Nocebo effects can cause real pain from harmless treatments. A warning can plant symptoms, especially when you expect your body to be fragile. In trials, people told a treatment might cause headaches often report them, even on inert pills. Brain scans show threat networks activating, preparing you to notice discomfort and interpret it as danger. That hyperattention amplifies normal sensations, like a harmless tingle, becoming a stabbing alarm. Stress hormones rise, and the body can tighten, reducing blood flow and worsening aches. Doctors now choose words carefully because language is a form of medicine. Too clear honesty still matters, but fear-loaded phrasing can backfire. Some clinics bear side effect discussions with coping plans, so the brain expects support instead of doom. When people feel informed and steady, the same information causes fewer symptoms. This darker mirror of placebo shows mind over matter is not only a gift, it is a lever that can hurt when pulled wrong. The brain can dial pain up or down like a volume knob. Pain is not just a signal from tissues. It is a decision the brain makes. 2. People with the same injury can feel wildly different levels of suffering. In the brain stem and network can turn pain messages down before they reach. Awareness that system responds to context like safety, fear, attention, and social support. Soldiers sometimes report little pain in battle, then hurt intensely once danger passes. The brain is prioritizing survival, and it can postpone suffering to keep you moving. Later, the volume rises, encouraging rest and protection while the body repairs. Therapies like distraction reassurance and graded movement use this built-in dial understanding. This does not mean pain is imaginary. It means the brain is the amplifier that sets the game for every sensation. When you learn what turns the dial, you gain a new kind of control, even during real injury and long after it. Stress thoughts can raise inflammation even without an infection. A stressful story in your mind can move the immune system into high alert. Researchers have measured rises in inflammatory markers after exams, arguments, and sleepless nights. Inflammation is useful for fighting germs, but it can also make joints ache and moods darken. The brain talks to immunity through hormones like cortisol and through nerve signals. When threat feels constant, those messages can become chaotic, sometimes leaving the body overreactive. That is one reason chronic stress is linked with slower wound healing. It can also weaken vaccine responses in some studies, as if defenses are misallocated. The hopeful twist is that safety signals, rest, and social connection can calm inflammation. Even brief relaxation practices have been linked with lower inflammatory activity, especially when done consistently over weeks, not just once. Mind over matter shows up here as chemistry, where a calmer mind can help the body stand down again. Focused breathing can shift the vagus nerve within a minute. Your breath is one of the few body systems you can steer directly. When you lengthen the exhale sensors in the lungs, signal the brain to reduce arousal. This shift travels through the vagus nerve, a wandering cable linking brain, heart, and gut. As parasympathetic activity rises, the heart can slow and heart rate variability can increase. That pattern is often associated with resilience, like a suspension system that absorbs bumps. Singers, divers, and meditators train differently, but all start with breath control. In labs, paced breathing can reduce blood pressure in some people over time. It can also interrupt spirals of panic by giving the brain a steady rhythm to follow. The surprising part is how fast it works, because nerves respond within a single breath cycle for many people. So each slow exhale becomes a message that says safe enough, and the body listens almost immediately. Today, meditation can thicken brain regions linked to attention and emotion. Meditation is often described as rest, but the brain treats it like training in long term. Practitioners' scans have found thicker cortex in areas tied to attention and self-control. Other studies show changes in networks that manage emotion, helping people recover from stress faster. These shifts reflect neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to remodel with repeated use. Even 8 weeks of structured practice has been linked with measurable differences. In some experiments, the changes are not magic. They are like strengthening a muscle you rarely visit. People report noticing thoughts without being dragged around by them. That gap between impulsive action can improve relationships, sleep, and decision-making. Scientists are now mapping which styles work best for different minds, from focused attention to loving kindness, and for different ages. What began as a spiritual practice is becoming a laboratory tool for reshaping the mind circuitry in ways can track. Hypnosis can alter pain networks, not just mood or belief. Hypnosis can shift pain processing, even when the stimulus on the skin stays the same. People under hypnosis may describe pain as distant, dull, or simply unimportant. In imaging studies, activity changes in areas that handle attention and meaning, not only sensation. It suggests the mind can relabel the experience, changing what the brain decides to amplify. Dentists and surgeons have used it as support, especially when anxiety makes pain worse. Not everyone is equally hypnotizable, and it is not mind control. It works best as cooperation, where the listener follows suggestions, like a guided simulation. Some researchers compare it to turning down competing thoughts. So one idea can dominate. In that focused state, the brain may recruit its own calming circuits, similar to deep absorption in a movie scene. The bigger lesson is that attention is powerful medicine, shaping pain through the stories we inhabit each day alone. Your body often obeys imagined threats as if they were real. Your body reacts to imagined danger with the same toolkit it uses for real danger. Think of a job interview, and your palms may sweat before you stand up. Watch a horror film, and your heart can search as if you must run. The brain's threat detector cannot always tell the difference between a memory, a prediction, and the present, so it triggers adrenaline, shifts blood to muscles, and sharpens attention toward escape. That response can be life-saving, but it can also keep you stuck in chronic tension. People with anxiety often feel exhausted because their bodies are repeatedly preparing for disasters. Therapies like imagery, rehearsal, and exposure use the imagination in reverse, teaching safety. When the brain learns a feared situation can be survived, the alarm quiets and the body loosens again. Mind over matter is this loop. Thought shaped physiology, and physiology feeds the next thought you feel. A racing thought can tighten muscles before you notice it. The body often reacts before the mind finishes a sentence. Sudden thought of danger, pressure, or urgency can trigger muscle tightening in the jaw, shoulders, stomach, and hands within fractions of a second. This happens because the brain treats threatening thoughts like early warning signals. Motor pathways receive the message and prepare the body for action, even if no action is required. Many people live with this low-level bracing all day, unaware of it, until pain or fatigue appears. Over time, the nervous system can treat tension as the default state. What makes this fascinating is the feedback loop. Tight muscles send danger signals back to the brain, which keeps the thought feeling urgent. When the body softens, the brain often follows. Learning to notice tension early can interrupt this loop before it grows. In this way, awareness becomes leverage, allowing thought and body to stop escalating each other. Slow exhaling can lower carbon dioxide sensitivity and calm panic. Panic often feels like a lack of oxygen, but the real driver is usually carbon dioxide. The brain uses carbon dioxide levels to decide how urgently you need to breathe. When anxiety heightens this sensitivity, even small changes can trigger alarm. Breathing faster may feel helpful, but it lowers carbon dioxide too quickly, causing dizziness and tingling that intensify fear. A slow, steady exhale works differently. It stabilizes breathing rhythm and reassures the brainstem that the body is not in danger. Over repeated practice, the alarm system becomes less reactive. Sensations that once felt threatening begin to feel tolerable. This is not about forcing calm. It is about teaching the nervous system that normal bodily signals are safe, that learning happens gradually, breath by breath. The remarkable part is how quickly the first shift can occur. One long exhale can start changing the message the body sends to the brain, and the brain listens. Biofeedback can teach you to warm a fingertip on purpose. Biofeedback makes invisible processes visible. In thermal biofeedback, a small sensor measures fingertip temperature, which reflect blood flow near the skin. Stress tightens small blood vessels, often cooling the fingers without awareness. When people watch the temperature in real time, they learn which thoughts and sensations cause it to drop or rise. With practice, many can intentionally increase warmth by relaxing muscles and shifting attention. That Wolf signals reduced arousal in the nervous system. This method has been explored for stress-related pain and circulation issues because it trains regulation rather than distraction. What feels like imagination becomes measurable change. The real power is learning control through feedback, not guesswork. Once the skill is learned, the sensor is no longer needed. The body remembers the pathway. This shows that some processes labeled automatic are actually trainable with the right mirror. The mind can learn to guide systems it was never taught. It could influence athletes improve strength by rehearsing movement without moving. Mental rehearsal activates many of the same brain regions used during physical movement. When athletes vividly imagine a lift or sprint, the brain practices timing, coordination, and sequencing without muscle contraction. This strengthens the neural blueprint that guides movement. Research has shown measurable strength gains from imagery alone, especially when paired with real training. It also helps maintain skill during injury when physical practice is limited. The benefit comes from clearer communication between brain and muscle, not from muscle growth itself. Elite performers use this to reduce errors under pressure. When the movement finally happens, it feels familiar, almost rehearsed in advance. This reveals that strength is not only about muscle fibers, it is also about how, confidently and efficiently, the nervous system recruits them. Training the mind sharpens the signal. When the signal improves, the body often follows with surprising precision. Phantom limb pain shows the brain can hurt without tissue damage. After an amputation, many people still feel sensations in the missing limb. Fingers may itch, clench, or burn despite no physical source. This happens because the brain maintains a body map that does not update instantly. Signals from nearby areas can activate this old map, creating vivid sensations. In some cases, the mismatch between intention and feedback produces pain. This phenomenon demonstrates that pain is not a direct report from tissue. It is an interpretation built by the brain. That insight reshaped pain science. It explains how pain can persist long after healing and why damage does not always predict suffering. Phantom pain feels real because it is real to the brain. The hopeful implication is that if the brain can generate pain without injury, it may also be guided to release it by updating its internal map. Understanding this changed how clinicians approach chronic pain treatment. Mirror therapy conquered phantom pain by tricking visual circuits. Mirror therapy uses vision to reshape the brain's body map. A mirror is placed so the reflection of the intact limb appears where the missing limb would be. When the person moves the real limb, the brain sees both limbs moving together. This visual feedback can reduce phantom pain, especially when the missing limb feels stuck or cramped. The brain expects movement commands to be matched with sensory confirmation. When that confirmation appears, even through reflection, the alarm may subside. This simple setup revealed how powerful vision is in shaping bodily experience. It inspired modern virtual reality therapies that create digital limbs controlled by the user. These approaches aim to update the brain's expectations and reduce pain through consistency rather than force. A deeper lesson is that the brain relies on coherence. When sight, intention, and sensation align, suffering often softens. Chronic stress can shrink parts of the hippocampus over time. The hippocampus plays a key role in memory and emotional regulation. Prolonged stress exposes the brain to repeated surges of cortisol, a hormone meant for short-term survival. When exposure is constant, it can interfere with cell growth and neural connections in sensitive regions. Animal studies show reduced branching and fewer new neurons under chronic stress. Human research links long-term stress with differences in hippocampal volume and memory performance. These changes help explain why stress can make thinking feel foggy and memories harder to form. The encouraging part is plasticity. The brain can adapt again when stress eases. Sleep, exercise therapy, and supportive environments are associated with improved cognitive function. This fact reframes stress as a biological force, not just an emotional state. It also shows why managing stress matters not only for comfort, but for protecting the brain's ability to learn and remember. Kind social touch can lower cortisol and soften pain responses. Supportive touch can signal safety to the nervous system. In studies of stress and pain, people who receive comforting contact often show lower cortisol levels and reduced pain ratings. The effect depends on trust and consent. When touch feels safe, it can relax muscle guarding and calm threat circuits in the brain. Specialized nerve fibers in the skin respond to slow, reassuring contact and connect to emotional processing centers. This may explain why certain kinds of touch feel deeply settling. In medical settings, simple gestures like hand-holding during procedures have been associated with better tolerance and reduced distress. Touch does not eliminate pain, but it can change how the body interprets it. This demonstrates that human connection is not abstract. It is a physiological signal that can shift chemistry, posture, and perception. The body listens closely to signs that it is not alone. Laughter can release endorphins and raise pain tolerance. Briefly, laughter triggers changes throughout the body. Breathing becomes rhythmic, facial muscles relax, and stress hormones may drop. Research links shared laughter with endorphin release chemicals involved in bonding and pain buffering. In some experiments, people tolerate discomfort longer after laughing together. Attention also shifts outward away from monitoring the body for threat. That shift alone can reduce how intense sensations feel. The social element matters. Laughing with others signals safety and synchrony, which can relax defensive responses. While laughter is not a treatment for illness, it demonstrates how emotion can influence physical thresholds. It shows that pain is not fixed, but modulated by context, meaning, and connection. Something as ordinary as laughter can briefly change how the nervous system sets its limits. This highlights the brain's building capacity to soften experience through shared positive states. A comforting voice can slow a baby's heartbeat and breathing. Infants rely on caregivers to regulate their nervous systems. A familiar voice with steady rhythm and pitch can act as an external regulator. Studies in neonatal care show that soothing speech or recorded parent voices can support steadier breathing and heart rhythms. The baby does not process words, but it responds to patterns that signal safety. This process is called co-regulation, where one nervous system helps guide another toward balance. Over time, repeated experiences of being soothed help the infant develop internal regulation skills. This wiring does not disappear in adulthood. Trusted voices can still calm the body's slow breathing and reduce stress responses. That is why tone often matters more than content during emotional moments. Across cultures, lullabies exist because sound itself can shape physiology. A voice becomes more than communication. It becomes a biological signal that helps the body settle. Your gut and brain trade messages all day through the vagus. Think of the vagus nerve as a two-way highway between your brain and your organs. It carries signals about fullness, nausea, and information up toward the brainstem. It also carries commands down. It can speed digestion or slow it. When you feel safe, digestion tends to run smoothly, and blood flow favors the gut. When you feel threatened, the brain can redirect energy away from the belly. That shift can turn appetite off and tighten the stomach without warning. Scientists study how vagus signals influence mood and stress resilience. Some therapies use slow breathing to nudge vague activity output. Others explore electrical stimulation for conditions like depression and epilepsy. The astonishing part is how physical feelings become emotions through this channel. Your body's inner state is not silent. It is constantly informing your mind. Stomach butterflies are real because the gut has its own neurons. Your intestines contain a dense web of nerve cells that coordinate digestion locally. This network can sense stretch, irritation, and chemical changes inside the gut. It can also adjust muscle waves that move food along without conscious control. When stress hits, those waves can speed up, stall, or become irregular. That is why fear can feel like fluttering, dropping, or twisting in the belly. These sensations are not metaphors. They are movement and signaling you can physically feel. The gut also releases messengers like serotonin that affect sensation and mood. That does not mean the gut thinks, but it responds with surprising sophistication. Researchers call it a second brain as a teaching shorthand. The deeper lesson is that emotion has a body address. When your mind shifts meaning your guts, nerves often react like they heard it directly. Smell can summon childhood memories with startling speed and force. A scent can bring back a scene faster than a photograph ever could. Smell signals travel into brain regions closely tied to emotion and memory. They take a direct route that helps explain the suddenness of the effect. One breath can revive a kitchen, a classroom, or a particular rainy street. The memory often arrives with feeling, not as a neat story. That is because smell is stored alongside context, mood, and body state. Researchers use this to study how memories are reconstructed, not replayed. Smell can also change behavior quietly by shifting appetite or comfort. It can make time feel folded, like years collapse into one moment. Perfume makers and chefs rely on this emotional shortcut every day. The striking part is how personal it is. A molecule in the air can touch a receptor and reopen a whole chapter. Music can synchronize breathing, pulse, and even movement timing. Rhythm invites the body to match it often without asking permission first. Your breathing can drift toward a song's tempo within a short time. Heart rate can also shift, especially with predictable steady patterns. This is called entrainment, and it shows up in marching and dance. In rehabilitation, beats can guide steps when timing feels unreliable. Music also shapes emotion, and emotion shapes physiology, so the effects stack together. A fast tempo can raise alertness and tighten posture. A slow lullaby pattern can soften muscles and lengthen exhalation. Even group singing can align breathing across many people at once. The brain treats rhythm as a scaffold for timing across systems. That is why a drummer can steady an entire room. It is not only art, it is organization. Sound becomes structure, and your body willingly moves inside that structure. Steady rhythm can reduce tremor by guiding motor circuits. Tremor often comes from timing problems in circuits that coordinate smooth movement. A steady beat can provide an external clock for the nervous system. When the brain locks onto that, clock commands can become more evenly spaced. Some people walk more steadily when they step to rhythmic sound cues. The beat reduces uncertainty about when to start and when to stop. Therapists use rhythmic auditory stimulation in movement rehabilitation programs. It can help retrain gait timing after stroke or in Parkinson's care. The improvement is not magic. It is better synchronization across motor loops. Even tapping to a metronome can refine coordination in simple tasks. Researchers love this because it reveals movement as prediction plus correction. A stable rhythm supplies the prediction so the brain can correct less. A surprising part is how small the cue can be. A simple pulse can influence deep motor systems that feel out of reach. The brain predicts sensations, then edits reality to match guesses. Your brain does not wait for the world. It prepares a draft of it. It predicts what you will feel based on past experience and current context. Incoming signals are compared to that draft in fractions of a second. When the match is close, the brain fills in details and you feel continuity. When the match is off, you feel surprise and the model updates. This helps explain why you can mishear lyrics until you learn them. It also explains why expectation can change taste, touch, and even pain. Tension acts like a spotlight that tells the brain which signals matter most. What you attend to becomes louder in the final experience. This is powerful, but it can also mislead, producing illusions and mistaken certainty. Scientists call this predictive processing, and it reframes perception as construction. Reality is still real, but your experience is a best fit built in real time. Change the prediction and the experience can change with it. Motion sickness happens when the brain rejects conflicting sensory stories. Your inner ear reports acceleration using fluid motion and tiny senses. Your eyes report motion through the flow of scenery and visual reference points. Your muscles and joints report pressure and balance through the body's posture signals. When those streams disagree, the brain struggles to choose one consistent story. On the boat, the ear feels rolling, while the eyes may see a still cabin. In a car, the eyes may focus on a book, while the ear feels turns. The brain treats this mismatch as a serious warning sign. One theory links it to poisoning because toxins can disrupt perception in confusing ways. The body responds with nausea as a protective reflex even when no toxin exists. That is why motion sickness can feel sudden and overpowering. Looking at the horizon often helps because it reconciles the story. The deeper point is that coherence matters to the nervous system. When perception cannot agree, the stomach is often the first to protest. Optical illusions reveal perception is a best guess not for camera. Illusions are not mistakes of the eyes. They are habits of the brain. The brain uses shortcuts to interpret light, shadow, and distance quickly. Those shortcuts usually help you survive and navigate efficiently. An illusion is a special setup where the shortcuts produce the wrong answer. Straight lines can look bent because the brain assumes depth from context. Colors can look different because the brain compares them to nearby tones. Motion can seem present because the brain expects movement from certain patterns. Scientists study illusions because they expose the rules perception uses. They are like a window into the brain's private assumptions. Illusions also teach humility because confidence does not guarantee accuracy. Your brain can feel certain and still be wrong once you learn that everyday scene becomes more mysterious. You are not receiving raw reality, you are receiving an interpretation. That interpretation is brilliant, fast, and sometimes fooled on purpose. Illusions show the mind constructing what the eyes deliver. Your skin can feel painless when you feel in control. The nervous system treats control as a safety signal, and safety changes pain. When you can predict a sensation, the brain often reduces its threat value. When you can stop it, the brain may turn the alarm down further. In experiments, the same stimulus is tolerated better when people choose it. When it feels imposed, the brain can amplify pain to push you away. This is not weakness, it is protective biology working as designed. Control also reduces helplessness, which lowers stress. Chemistry in the background, that karma state can reduce muscle guarding that otherwise increases discomfort. Clinicians use this by explaining procedures clearly and offering choices when possible. Even small choices like when to start can matter. The fascinating part is how meaning enters the pain system. Nerves in the skin send signals, but the brain decides. Urgency agency tells the brain, I can handle this, and the experience often shifts in mind over matter. Control is not a slogan, it is a neural setting. Fear can narrow vision, literally shrinking your useful field of view. Fear can push attention into a tunnel, aimed straight at the perceived threat. Peripheral details become harder to notice, even when the eyes are open. This can make the world feel smaller and more urgent. In seconds, the body is preparing for action, and broad scanning becomes less important in real danger. That focus can help you react quickly in modern stress. It can backfire during meetings, crowds, or anxious thoughts. Researchers link this effect to arousal systems that change sensory processing priorities. Eye movements can become stickier, so the gaze is harder to shift. People may later be shocked by what they missed in plain sight. When fear eases, vision often feels wider again, like a room expanding. This is mind over matter in a concrete form. Emotion changes perception, and perception changes decisions. A narrowed view can narrow options, making escape feel like the only plan. Widened attention and choices can return. High anxiety can make harmless sensations feel urgent and dangerous. An anxious mind turns the body into a surveillance zone where every sensation is scanned for meaning. A mild flutter, a warm face, or a shallow breath can suddenly feel important, even threatening. Attention locks onto the sensation, and that focus amplifies it, making it feel stronger and more persistent. The brain then searches for an explanation, often landing on danger, which further activates the stress response. Hormones rise, muscles tighten, and breathing shifts, creating even more sensations to monitor. This loop can build quickly, not because something is wrong, but because interpretation keeps feeding physiology. Many panic episodes begin this way, with a normal bodily signal misread as an emergency. Learning that urgency does not equal danger can loosen the cycle. When sensations are allowed without interrogation, they often fade on their own, and the nervous system gradually stands down. Naming a feeling can calm the amygdala in measurable ways. When emotion surges without words, the brain's along center can stay active longer than necessary. The amygdala reacts fast and broadly, preparing the body before explanation arrives. Putting a clear label on what you feel recruits brain regions involved in language and regulation. Those regions help organize the experience, reducing the sense of chaos. Brain imaging studies show that this simple act can lower amygdala activity even while the emotion remains present. The feeling does not disappear, but it becomes less overwhelming and easier to manage. Naming also creates a small pause, a moment of observation instead of reaction. That pause can be enough to change what happens next. Children use this skill when guided, and adults can relearn it during stress. A short phrase can turn raw sensation into information, giving the nervous system a clearer map and a gentler response. Reframing stress as helpful can improve performance under pressure. Stress brings a surge of energy meant to prepare the body for challenge. Heart rate rises, attention sharpens, and the brain prioritizes speed. When this response is labeled as harmful, performance often suffers because worry competes with focus. When the same sensations are interpreted as readiness, the body's preparation can be used instead of thought. Research shows that people taught to reframe stress often perform better in demanding situations, even though their physiology looks similar. Athletes, speakers, and performers use this shift by treating nerves as a sign that the body is awake and prepared. The discomfort remains, but its meaning changes. Meaning matters because the brain uses it to decide whether to escalate or stabilize. By choosing a story that frames stress as support, the mind guides the body toward effectiveness rather than shutdown, turning pressure into a resource. A single deep sigh can reset breathing patterns and tension. A physiological sigh combines 2 quick inhales with a long, slow exhale. This pattern helps reopen tiny air spaces in the lungs that can collapse during shallow breathing. The extended exhale activates calming pathways that lower nervous system. Arousal muscles often soften as the brain receives a signal that urgency has passed. Many people sigh naturally after stress, as if the body is pressing a reset button. Using it intentionally can interrupt rising panic before it takes hold. The breath also stabilizes carbon dioxide levels, which can reduce feelings of air hunger or dizziness. That combination makes the sigh especially effective during moments of overwhelm. It does not require concentration or belief to work, because breathing connects directly to brainstem regulation. One well-timed sigh can change the body's rhythm quickly, and the mind often settles as that rhythm slows. Blushing is a mind-driven blood flow change you cannot hide. Blushing occurs when blood vessels in the face widen rapidly in response to social emotion. The trigger is often attention, as if being seen becomes a physical event. Heat rises in the cheeks, ears, or neck, sometimes within seconds. People try to suppress it, yet the response bypasses conscious control entirely. Some researchers suggest blushing signals awareness of social norms, showing others that you recognize a misstep that makes it a rare emotion. That writes itself directly onto the skin. Even imagining an awkward moment can sometimes bring on the same flush. The body is responding to meaning rather than temperature, which is what makes it so striking. Thoughts about reputation, belonging, and judgment are translated into circulation changes in real time. Blushing reminders that social emotions are not abstract. They move blood, change color, and announce themselves without asking permission. Embarrassment can heat the face by opening tiny blood vessels. The skin of the face contains dense networks of small blood vessels that respond quickly to nerve signals. During embarrassment, autonomic commands increase blood flow across the cheeks and ears. Warmth appears because more blood reaches the surface in a short time. This often happens before you can fully name what you are feeling. That speed shows how quickly social evaluation becomes physical experience. Some people blush easily, while others rarely do, but the underlying mechanism is shared. Trying to hide embarrassment can intensify it because attention stays locked on the reaction. In group settings, blushing can invite understanding by signaling concern for social rules. A subtle vascular change becomes a visible message. Emotion turns into physiology, and physiology becomes communication. Embarrassment may feel uncomfortable, but it reveals how deeply the body is tuned to social meaning and how quickly it responds. The startle reflex proves thought is not required for action. Sudden sound can make your body jump before you recognize what happened. This reaction travels through fast brainstem pathways designed for immediate protection. Eyes blink, shoulders rise, and muscles brace in a fraction of a second. Conscious awareness arrives later, asking questions after the movement is already complete. This shows that action can precede thought rather than follow it. The reflex favors speed over accuracy because hesitation once carried real risk. Even harmless noises can trigger it because the system is built to err on the side of caution. Startle responses are stronger in anxious states, revealing how sensitivity is tuned by context. Researchers study this reflex to understand fear and vigilance. It is a vivid reminder that much of behavior is managed below awareness. The thinking mind often narrates events after the body has already acted. Your heartbeat can shape how strongly you feel fear. Each heartbeat sends signals to the brain about the body's internal state during emotional moments. Those signals blend with what you are seeing and hearing. Research suggests that fear cues can feel more intense during certain phases of the heartbeat. The brain is combining outside information with inside timing, creating a single experience. A racing heart can make danger feel closer, even when nothing has changed externally. This helps explain why anxiety can spike after caffeine, illness, or poor sleep. When heart rhythm studies, emotions often feel less sharp and less urgent. Breathing practices influence fear partly by changing cardiac rhythm. This internal sensing is called interoception, the perception of the body from within. Feelings are not just thoughts about the world, they are built from perception. Plus pulse, and the pulse is always contributing to the story. People misread their own emotions when their pulse is altered. The brain often uses bodily signals as clues when deciding what you feel. When the heart speeds up, the mind may assume excitement or fear is present. In experiments, people judge situations as more intense when their pulse is elevated. They are not mistaken on purpose. Their interpretation is being shaped by internal feedback. This helps explain why anxiety can feel convincing when the body is activated. It also explains why calming the body can clarify emotional understanding. Similar misreadings can happen after exercise, fever, or strong caffeine intake. The body shifts first, and the mind supplies a matching explanation. Learning this can reduce panic because a fast pulse does not automatically mean danger. Sometimes it is simply physiology doing its job. When the pulse settles, the emotional story often changes with it. Hunger can make neutral faces look angrier than they are. When energy runs low, the brain becomes more sensitive to threat and frustration. This shift can bias perception, making neutral expressions appear hostile or dismissive. It is not just mood, it is a change in interpretation. Researchers call this misattribution, when internal state colors how the outside world is read. Hunger also reduces patience, preparing the mind for conflict more quickly. A simple glance can feel personal when the body is depleted. Once nourishment arrives, the same face can look ordinary again. This effect shows that perception is not fixed, it depends on the body's current needs. Social reality shifts with physiology, often without awareness. The lesson is practical and humbling. Sometimes what feels like an unfriendly world is a hungry brain asking for fuel. Feed the body and the world often softens and responds. Sleep loss amplifies pain signals and weakens emotional brakes. After a short night, the world can feel sharper at the edges, and the body often feels it first. Pain signals that might have been tolerable can become louder, more insistent, and harder to ignore. Part of this is chemistry, because sleep helps regulate inflammatory pathways and the brain's natural pain dampening systems. Another part is emotional control, because tired brains have less patience for discomfort and fewer resources to reframe it. That can turn a small lake into a bigger experience and a minor stressor into a heavy weight. Researchers also find that poor sleep makes negative feelings stickier, so frustration and worry linger longer. It becomes a double hit where pain rises and coping drops. The encouraging twist is that restoring sleep can restore resilience. One solid night does not erase everything, but it can noticeably change how the same body feels the next day. People's sleep can improve alertness, even when sleep was unchanged. In some experiments, people are told they slept wonderfully, even when measurements show an ordinary night. Amazingly, many report feeling sharper, calmer, and more awake the next morning. Their performance can improve too, as if belief unlocked a better version of the same brain. This effect highlights how expectations shape attention and effort. If you think you are arrested, you may stop scanning for fatigue and start acting capable, which changes how the day unfolds. Confidence can reduce the mental drag of self-monitoring, leaving more bandwidth for memory and focus. It does not mean sleep is optional. The body still needs real recovery, but it shows that the experience of tiredness is partly a story the brain tells about signals. When that story shifts, behavior shifts, and the brain may follow its own lead. It is a striking example of mind over matter, where belief does not create energy from nothing, but it can change how fully you access the energy you have. Dreams can rehearse threats, building karma reactions when awake. Dreams often look strange, yet many carry a familiar emotional shape: being chased, being late, losing something important. One idea in sleep science is that dreaming lets the brain practice danger in a safe environment. It is like a nightly simulator where fear and problem solving can run without real consequences. During certain sleep stages, the brain replays and reorganizes memory, mixing old experiences with new lessons. That process may help you recognize patterns and respond more smoothly in waking life. Some people notice that worries feel less sharp after sleep, as if the mind has quietly digested them. Nightmares can be the painful side of this rehearsal, especially after trauma, when the brain keeps returning to the same alarm. Yet even then, therapies that reshape the dream story can reduce distress over time. The deeper wonder is that while you lie still, your brain may be training for tomorrow, practicing emotional moves in the dark. Lucid dreamers can signal awareness using planned eye movements. Lucid dreaming is the rare moment when you realize you are dreaming while the dream continues. Researchers found a clever way to verify it without waking the dreamer. During certain sleep stages, the body's muscles are mostly inhibited, but the eyes can still move. So lucid dreamers agree on a simple code like sweeping their eyes left and right in a specific pattern once they become aware. In sleep labs, those eye signals show up clearly on recordings arriving from inside the dream. It is a breathtaking bridge between two worlds, a sleeping brain sending a deliberate message to waking scientists. This also suggests that parts of the mind responsible for self-awareness can switch on during sleep. People use lucid dreaming to explore creativity, reduce recurring nightmares, or practice skills in vivid imagery. The key is not fantasy. It is evidence that consciousness has levels and modes. For a moment, you can be both actor and observer in your own nighttime theater. Imagining a smell can activate parts of the smell cortex. Close your eyes and picture fresh coffee, and you may notice your mouth react before you move. Many people can summon a scent so vividly that it feels almost present. Brain studies suggest that imagining smells can activate some of the same regions involved in real smelling. The signal is usually weaker than a true odor, but it is still a meaningful echo. This is part of why memory can feel physical. The brain stores sensory experiences in networks that can be reawakened by thought. Perfumers and chefs often train this ability, building an inner library of aromas they can manipulate mentally. It also helps explain cravings, because imagining a food can stop preparing the body for it. The fascinating point is that perception is not only incoming. The brain can generate sensory-like states from the inside using memory as raw material. When you understand that imagination becomes less like pretending and more like controlled activation of real neural pathways. Visualizing bright light can shrink pupils slightly in some people. Pupils usually respond to actual light widening in darkness and narrowing in brightness. Yet in some studies, imagining a bright scene can produce a subtle pupil response, as if the brain is preparing the eyes for what it expects. The change is small, but it is meaningful because it suggests that mental imagery reaches into the body's automatic systems. Your brain is not only describing light, it is simulating its consequences. This fits with the broader idea that imagination is a kind of internal perception built from sensory memories and predictions. People with strong visual imagery often show stronger effect, while others have weaker or none. By the way, the phenomenon points to a mind that can influence reflex-like responses. It also shows why visualization can feel intense, because the body partly believes the scene. When you picture sunlight reflecting off snow or a bright phone screen in the dark room, your nervous system may adjust as if the brightness is almost real. Athletes can lower oxygen cost by practicing slow nasal breathing. Many athletes train not just muscles, but breathing efficiency. Nasal breathing adds resistance, which can encourage slower, deeper breaths and steadier carbon dioxide levels over time. It can reduce the sensation of breathlessness at a given workload, making effort feel more sustainable. The nose also warms and humidifies air, which can be helpful in cold or dry conditions. Some training approaches use nasal breathing to keep intensity controlled, forcing the athlete to stay below a frantic pace. The result can be a calmer rhythm that improves endurance and recovery between bursts. This is not a shortcut that replaces conditioning, but it can change how the body manages fuel and stress. The mind over matter angle is the technique shapes physiology. By choosing a breathing style and sticking with it, athletes can nudge the nervous system towards steadier control. A small change at the entrance of the airway can ripple into heart rate, focus, and perceived exertion. Breath training can increase tolerance to carbon dioxide buildup. Carbon dioxide is not just waste, it is a powerful signal that drives the urge to breathe. Many people assume they need more oxygen when they feel air hunger, but often the discomfort is linked to carbon dioxide rising. Breath training can gradually make that signal less alarming. Practices that include slow breathing, controlled breath holds, or paced exhalations teach the brain that rising carbon dioxide can be tolerated safely. Over time, the urge to gasp may soften and breathing becomes smoother under stress. This is one reason breath training appears in free diving, singing, and some anxiety treatments. The fascinating part is that you are not training lungs as much as you are training interpretation. The body still tracks carbon dioxide, but the brain's alarm threshold can shift. That change can be surprisingly empowering because it reduces the fear that often accompanies breath sensations. When the alarm is quieter, you can stay calm longer, and calm itself improves breathing further. Cold exposure feels less intense when attention is carefully guided. Cold can be a shock, and the first instinct is to tense, gasp, and resist. Yet people who train in cold water often describe a different experience. Over time, not because the water changed, but because the relationship to the sensation changed. Attention can be directed towards steady breathing, relaxed shoulders, or the boundaries of sensation, rather than a story of suffering. This alters the emotional layer of cold, which can change how intense it feels. The brain learns that cold is not automatically danger, and it stops amplifying the signal as urgently. Some of this is adaptation in the body, but some is training in perception. You can hear it in the way experienced swimmers talk. They notice the cold, then they settle. Then the body stops shouting. This matters because distress magnifies sensation. When you reduce distress, you reduce the volume of the experience. It is a vivid demonstration that attention is not passive. It shapes what the body feels like from the inside. Pain often fades faster when you focus on a meaningful goal. Pain demands attention, but attention can be redirected by purpose in challenging situations. People often report that discomfort becomes more tolerable when they are moving towards something that matters to them. A runner chasing a finish line, a parent lifting a child, a climber reaching a safe ledge. The body can keep going, even with strong signals. The brain weighs cost against value, and value can change the final experience. Meaning does not erase injury, but it can change how urgent the pain feels and how much it dominates awareness. This is one reason motivation affects rehabilitation outcomes. When a person connects movement to a clear purpose, practice becomes easier to sustain, and the nervous system can become less protective over time. Purpose also reduces rumination, which is a known amplifier of suffering. When the mind is anchored to a goal, there is less room for pain to expand into the whole world. In Mind Over Matter, meaning is not deformation. It is a lever that can change perception. The placebo effect can be stronger when treatment looks dramatic. A treatment that seems intense can make the brain treat it as a major turning point. When there is a machine, a procedure, a strict schedule, or a careful ritual, expectations often rise. Higher expectations can change attention, so symptoms stop being watched like threats. The body may relax its defensive stance, and pain can feel less urgent. Some studies find that sham procedures cannot perform inert pills because the ceremony feels more convincing. This does not mean spectacle is the goal, and it should never be used to mislead. It means the nervous system responds to meaning and to effort. A clear explanation, a confident plan, and a sense of care can strengthen that meaning without exaggeration. In a very real way, the environment becomes part of the treatment. The mind hears the drama, and the body prepares to cooperate. The doctor's confidence can change outcomes through expectation alone. When someone you trust speaks with steady certainty, your nervous system often settles before anything else happens. That calm can reduce muscle guarding and ease the stress response that amplifies discomfort. Confidence also shapes what you expect to feel next, and expectation steers attention. If you expect worsening, you scan for danger. If you expect a clear plan, you notice progress and you recover focus. Research on clinical encounters often links warmth and clarity with better patient experiences, including lower distress during procedures. This effect is not about charm, and it is not about pretending everything is simple. It is about safety signals, a calm voice, a clear timeline, and a sense of partnership can change how the body prepares for what follows. Even small shifts and fear can change breathing, digestion, and pain sensitivity. Trust becomes a real ingredient in the biology of healing. Open-labeled placebos can still help, even when you know at first it sounds impossible. You are handed a pill and told it contains no active drug, and it still helps some people. The key is learning your body has spent a lifetime linking treatment rituals with relief. Swallowing a pill, opening a bottle, or following a routine can become a cue that shifts the nervous system. That cue may reduce vigilance and change how symptoms are interpreted. Open-labeled placebo studies also frame the process as an experiment you are participating in, which can restore a sense of agency. Agency matters because helplessness can amplify pain and fatigue. This does not replace proper medical care, and it does not work for every problem. Still, it reveals something startling. The body can respond to patterns even when the mind knows the explanation. Healing can be conditioned like a reflex, and honesty does not always break the effect. Words like sting can intensify pain more than neutral language. The brain predicts sensations before they arrive, and words help build that prediction. If someone warns that something will sting or burn, the nervous system prepares for threat. Muscles tighten, breathing shifts, and attention narrows toward the body part. The same physical stimulus can then feel sharper because the brain is already on alert. When clinicians use calmer terms and clear timing, many people report less distress. This is not about hiding truth. It is about avoiding language that adds unnecessary danger to the forecast. Pain is partly an interpretation of meaning, and meaning can be shaped by phrasing. Parents see this with children. When a scary description raises fear before the shot, good communication gives accurate expectation and a sense of control in mind over matter. Words are not decoration. They become part of the experience that the body reacts to. The brain can create itch from suggestion without any irritant. Each exists to protect you, so the brain treats it as urgent. Hear a vivid description of crawling insects or a spreading rash, and your skin may start to prickle. Nothing touched you, yet the urge to scratch feels completely real. Suggestion can prime the brain to search for a threat, and that search can generate sensation. Once scratching starts, the skin can become more sensitive, which strengthens the loop. This is why it can feel stubborn in some conditions, where anxiety and attention keep it going. Researchers study itch because it reveals prediction in action. The brain would rather trigger a false alarm than miss a genuine irritant. The hopeful twist is that attention training and karma interpretation can reduce the intensity. When the threat story relaxes, the sensation often softens. The mind can create itch, and the mind can help quiet it. Watching someone scratch can make your own skin itch. Itch can be contagious in a strangely powerful way. Seeing someone scratch can trigger an itch in you, even if your skin was fine a moment ago. The brain uses mirroring systems to simulate what other people are doing, and those simulations can spill into sensation. There is also the protective logic at work. If someone nearby reacts like there is an irritant, your brain may prepare you to remove the same threat. Attention makes it stronger, especially when you focus on a body part and start checking it. This is why talking about lice or mosquitoes can make a whole group squirm. The sensation is real, even when the cause is not. You are not imagining it as a choice. You are running an ancient prediction system that sometimes overreacts. The fascinating part is that perception alone can become a trigger. What you witness outside can become something you feel inside. Seeing injury can trigger nausea through mirrored body maps. Some people feel dizzy or sick when they see blood or a needle. The reaction can arrive instantly long before a deliberate thought forms. The brain carries maps of the body that help you understand movement and sensation. When you watch an injury, those maps can activate as if danger is near. In some people, this triggers a vasovagal response that lowers heart rate and blood pressure. That drop can cause nausea, sweating, and a sense of fading. It is a protective reflex that would reduce blood loss if you are injured, even though you are only observing. Empathy may add to the effect because the brain simulates what the other person might feel. Smell and shock can intensify it, which makes the scene feel even more urgent. The good news is that the response is trainable. Gradual exposure and breathing control can reduce it over time, which proves the pattern can be rewired. The rub it better effect uses touch to gate pain. When you bump your elbow, your hand often goes there automatically. That instinct has a real neurological reason. Touch signals travel quickly, and they can compete with pain signals in the spinal cord. When touch input increases, less pain information reaches the brain so the experience can soften. This is called gating, and it is one of the simplest forms of pain modulation. Rubbing also brings movement and warmth, which can reduce stiffness and fear around the area. Fear matters because worry can amplify pain sensitivity. Children demonstrate this beautifully when a comforting hand changes their reaction within seconds. You see the same principle in massage and in pressure-based therapies. The pain is not fake, and the relief is not imagination. It is the nervous system changing the balance of incoming information. Sensation can be used to reshape sensation and your body. Learned that long ago, stress can delay wound healing by altering immune signaling. Healing is coordinated work, and stress can disrupt the schedule. When stress remains high, hormones, such as cortisol, shift immune activity and inflammation timing. Studies have found that stressed people often heal more slowly from small standardized wounds. Sleep disruption can add to the problem because sleep supports repair and immune balance. Appetite changes can matter too because rebuilding requires energy and nutrients. The body may prioritize immediate survival over maintenance when threat feels constant. That trade-off is useful in emergencies, yet it becomes costly when stress does not end. This is not a moral failure. It is a biological strategy running too long. The hopeful part is that safety signals can improve the environment. For healing, social support can reduce stress responses, and good rest can restore repair rhythms. Mind over matter appears here as a measurable change in recovery speed. The immune system listens to the nervous system, and it adjusts its effort accordingly. Optimism is linked with better recovery, after certain surgeries. Optimism is not magic, but it can change recovery through behavior and physiology together. People who expect improvement often engage more fully with rehabilitation. They may move sooner, practice exercises more consistently, and notice progress instead of scanning for disaster. That shift can reduce stress responses that might otherwise interfere with sleep and appetite. Better rest and steadier nourishment support healing across many systems. Optimism can also reduce rumination, which is a quiet amplifier of pain and fatigue. Some studies link a hopeful outlook with better outcomes after certain procedures, although results vary by condition and circumstance. The pattern makes sense because mindset shapes choices and choices shape the body's environment. A hopeful person may breathe more steadily and hold less tension, which can reduce guarding around a healing area. This is not about blaming anyone who struggles. It is about adding another lever in mind over matter. Outlook can guide action, and action can shape recovery. Adrenaline can temporarily boost strength, speed, and pain tolerance. In a true emergency, the body can unlock a mode that feels almost unreal. Adrenaline surges from the adrenal glands and races through the bloodstream, telling the heart to pump harder and the airways to open wider. Blood is redirected toward large muscles, and fuel is released fast. At the same time, pain can fade into the background because survival demands movement more than comfort. This is why some people sprint on a sprained ankle or lift something far heavier than usual in a crisis. The boost is short-lived, and it comes with a cost. Hands may shake afterward, digestion may stall, and fatigue can hit like a wave once the danger passes. Still, it is astonishing that a fall to fret can call up such a powerful chemical ally. Your body carries emergency reserves, and the mind holds the key that releases them. Stage fright can dry your mouth by shifting saliva control. The moment you feel watched, the body starts making trade-offs. Saliva is part of digestion, and digestion is not a priority when the brain predicts danger. Stress signals shift the autonomic nervous system, so the mouth becomes dry and sticky. The tongue may feel heavy, swallowing can become frequent, and speech can suddenly feel clumsy. This is not weakness. It is a protective program that evolved for running and fighting, not for microphones and meeting rooms. Stage fright also tightens throat muscles, which can change voice tone and breath support. Many performers learn to work with it by warming the voice, sipping water, and slowing the exhale before speaking. Some even reinterpret the dryness as a cue that the body is preparing for action. The fascinating part is how quickly social pressure becomes biology. A room full of eyes can reach into your salivary glands without touching you. You can learn to slow your pulse with paced breathing. Your heart does not beat in isolation. It listens to your breath through reflex circuits that adjust heart rate from moment to moment. When you inhale, the pulse often speeds slightly. When you exhale, it often slows. Paced breathing takes advantage of that relationship by stretching the exhale and keeping the rhythm steady. Over time, many people can lower their resting heart rate a little during practice, and they often feel calmer as the body follows the slower tempo. This skill is used by singers, marksmen, and athletes who need steadiness under pressure. It is also used in anxiety treatment because it offers a simple handle on arousal. You do not need to force calm thoughts first. You begin with breath timing, and the body responds. The surprising lesson is that self-control can be trained through rhythm. Your pulse can be guided like a pendulum when you give it a consistent pattern to follow. Some people can trigger goosebumps while using attention. Goosebumps are usually a reflex triggered by cold or strong emotion. Tiny muscles at the base of hair follicles contract, lifting the hairs and creating that familiar rippled skin. Most of us cannot control it, yet a small number of people report doing it on purpose. They describe focusing inward and summoning the sensation in the back of the neck, arms, or scalp. Researchers have studied this rare ability because it suggests that attention can reach into the autonomic nervous system. Goosebumps are linked with emotional circuits too, and that makes the skill even more intriguing. The person is not just moving a muscle, they are influencing a system designed to run without permission. It is a reminder that the boundary between voluntary and automatic is not as firm as we assume. For a few minds, a simple shift of focus can flip a switch that most bodies keep locked. Yoga can improve balance by retraining inner ear integration. Balance is a negotiation between senses. The inner ear reports motion and orientation. The eyes report the horizon, and the muscles report joint position. Yoga challenges that system with slow transitions, single-leg poses, and controlled head movements. By practicing near the edge of wobble, the brain learns how to combine sensory inputs more efficiently. Over time, many people become steadier, not only on the mat, but also while walking and turning. Breath control adds another layer because steady breathing reduces sudden body tension that throws balance off. Yoga also strengthens small stabilizing muscles in the feet, hips, and core, and that gives the brain a more reliable platform. The interesting part is that balance training is not only about strength, it is about recalibration. The nervous system updates the testaments of where you are in space. A practice that looks still from the outside can be busy inside, teaching the brain to trust and coordinate its senses. Tai Chi reduces full risk by sharpening body awareness. Tai Chi looks like slow motion, yet it is deeply demanding for the nervous system. The movements shift weight gradually from foot to foot, forcing constant updates about posture and center of mass. That training improves proprioception, the sense of where your limbs are without looking. It also builds smoother coordination between ankles, knees, hips, and spine. Older adults often benefit because the practice strengthens stabilizers and improves reaction timing when balance is challenged. Tai Chi also teaches relaxed readiness. Instead of stiffening, you learn to yield and adjust, and that reduces the sudden jerks that cause stumbles. Researchers have linked Tai Chi practice with fewer falls in many studies, especially when practiced consistently. The fascination is that preventing falls is not only about stronger legs, it is about a better map. Tai Chi refines the brain's internal model of the body and space, and a clearer model supports safer movement-focused practice. Can we map the brain's touch map of fingers? Your brain maintains a living map of your body, including how each finger feels touch. That map is not fixed. When you repeatedly use certain fingers for skilled tasks, the brain devotes more processing space to them. This is why careful practice can make touch feel more precise over time. Musicians, surgeons, and crafts people often develop exquisite fingertip awareness because their brains learn that those signals matter. Experiments show that training can improve discrimination between close touches, almost like increasing the resolution of a sensor. The brain is reallocating attention and wiring based on what you do most. This has big implications for rehabilitation. If a hand becomes less used after injury, the map can blur. Practice can sharpen it again by giving the brain consistent input. The wonder is that sensation is partly earned. You can change how you feel the world by changing how you train your fingers to meet it. Violinists grow larger finger maps on the left-hand cortex. A violinist's left hand performs rapid, precise finger placements that must land in exactly the right spot. Over years of practice, the brain adapts to that demand. Studies using brain imaging and sensory testing have found differences in how the left hand is represented in the somatosensory cortex. For skilled string players, the brain gives more detailed territory to the fingers that do the finest work. This is not a vague claim about talent. It is a physical change in representation linked to intensive training. The effect illustrates neuroplasticity in a way you can almost picture. Repetition tells the brain that these signals are important for survival of the skill. The map expands and perception can become more refined. It also shows why early training can matter, since developing brains may reshape more readily. Violin becomes more than an instrument. It becomes a long conversation between fingertips and cortex, where practice writes itself into neural real estate. London taxi training enlarges brain regions for navigation memory. London taxi drivers must learn an immense web of streets, landmarks, and routes. The training involves building a mental model of the city that can be used flexibly under pressure. Research on licensed drivers has reported differences in the hippocampal region associated with spatial memory and navigation. The implication is striking. Intense learning can shape the brain areas that support the learned skill. This is not about general intelligence. It is about repeated demands on a specific system. Navigation requires linking places, sequences, and choices while updating position continuously. Taxi training does that every day for years. The brain responds by adapting the machinery that makes those computations. It is one of the clearest modern examples of experience, leaving a structural footprint. The city becomes a memory palace, built from asphalt and habit. With enough practice, a place outside the body can reshape the brain inside it, turning streets into neural pathways that feel almost instinctive. Learning changes white matter, which are the brain's signal highways. White matter is the wiring that helps brain regions communicate quickly and reliably. It is made largely of myelinated nerve fibers that carry signals across distances. When you learn a skill, it is not only neurons firing in new patterns. The connections that coordinate those patterns can improve too. Studies of training have linked practice with changes in white matter properties in some tasks, suggesting faster or more efficient communication. This helps explain why a skill can start clumsy and then become smooth. The brain is not only storing information, it is improving the routes that deliver the information at the right time. Learning a language, mastering a sport, or practicing music can all place heavy demands on timing across netbooks. White matter adaptation supports that timing. The fascinating idea is that practice can change the speed of your own thoughts. Repetition does not merely add knowledge, it can upgrade the infrastructure. That knowledge travels through, making the brain a better connected place. Habit loops run on cue and reward, not willpower alone. A habit is often a tiny script that starts before you even notice the first line. A cue appears, maybe a buzzing phone, a certain chair, or a familiar time of day. The brain predicts a reward, and it nudges you toward the action that usually delivers it. The reward might be comfort, relief, stimulation, or simply ending boredom. Over time, the loop becomes efficient, which means it becomes automatic. That is why you can reach for a snack while still deciding whether you are hungry. Researchers found that changing the cue or changing the reward can change the habit faster than forcing restraint. If the brain still gets a satisfying payoff, it often stops insisting on the old routine. This makes habits feel less like moral weakness and more like learned wiring. Once you see the loop, you can work with it, and the mind feels suddenly less mysterious. Repeating a new routine can quiet the old one's pathway. Old habits do not vanish like erased chalk. They fade more like a trail that stops being walked. Each time you repeat a new routine, the brain strengthens that newer route and relies on it a bit more. The older route still exists, yet it loses priority when it stops paying off. This is why relapse can happen during stress, because the brain reaches for what is most familiar and fast. The useful trick is consistency during calm periods, since calm repetition builds a strong default. People often expect change to feel dramatic, yet it can feel boring, which is actually a good sign. Boring. Repetition is how the nervous system learns safety and efficiency. Some therapists suggest making the new routine easier than the old one at first. That lowers friction, so the brain chooses it without a fight. Over weeks, the new pathway becomes the one that fires first. Change becomes less like a battle and more like practice. Implementation intentions make follow-through more likely than motivation. Motivation is a feeling that comes and goes. Implementation intentions are a plan that stays put. Instead of saying, "I will exercise more," you decide, "If it is Monday at 7, I will walk for 20 minutes." The brain loves this because it removes decision fatigue at the crucial moment. The cue triggers the action without a debate. Researchers have found that these if-then plans improve follow-through for many goals, from studying to medication routines. The plan also reduces the chance that stress will steal the moment. You are not relying on inspiration. You are relying on the script. This turns future behavior into something you can rehearse in your mind like a scene. When the time arrives, it feels familiar, which makes it easier to start. The fascinating part is how small the shift is. Simple structure can guide behavior more reliably than raw desire. Your posture can influence confidence through feedback from muscles. Posture is not only how you look, it is information your brain receives about what state you are in. When you stand tall, breathe freely, and keep your chest open, another system, often rated as readiness. When you hunch and fold inward, the brain can read it as threat or defeat. That interpretation can change voice tone, eye contact, and even willingness to take action. Studies on posture and emotion show mixed results, yet many people still notice a practical effect in daily life. A steady stance can make it easier to speak clearly, especially under pressure. The mechanism may involve breathing, muscle tension, and attention, rather than confidence as a magic switch. Changing posture can also interrupt rumination by shifting the body out of a protective curl. It is a small lever that can change the feeling of the moment. The body sends a message, and the mind often believes it. Smiling can slightly lift mood by facial feedback signals. Your face is not only an output of emotion, it can be an input as well. When you smile, muscles around the mouth and eyes send signals back to the brain about what the body is doing. Those signals can nudge emotional circuits toward a lighter state, especially when stress is mild. Some experiments suggest that holding a smile can make negative stimuli feel less intense. Others find smaller effects, which hints that context matters a lot. Even so, many people recognize a gentle shift when they soften the face. Smiling can also change breathing patterns, which influences calm. There is a social layer too, since smiling invites warmth from others, and that feedback can reinforce mood. This does not mean you should fake happiness when you are hurting. It means the body has bidirectional wiring. Expression can shape experience. Small movement in the face can be a small movement in the mind. A frown can deepen negative feelings through the same feedback. When the brow tightens and the jaw sets, the brain receives a stream of signals that match effort and threat. That bodily state can make irritation or sadness feel more convincing. You might notice it during concentration, when a tense face quietly turns a challenge into frustration. Facial muscles can also influence breathing, since a clenched jaw often accompanies shallow breaths. Shallow breathing can raise arousal, and that can make emotions feel sharper. This is why relaxing the face sometimes brings a surprising wave of relief. It is not that the problem disappears, it is that the body stops adding extra alarm. Some therapists teach people to scan for a furrowed brow as an early warning sign. Cutting it early can prevent a mood from spiraling. This feedback loop also helps explain why arguments escalate. Faces tighten, which tightens feelings, which tightens faces. Again, softening the face can be a quiet way to step out of the loop. Breath holding can trigger the dive reflex and slow heart rate. Humans share an ancient reflex with seals and otters. When you hold your breath, especially with a cool face, the body can shift into a conservation mode called the dive reflex. Heart rate slows and blood flows, prioritized toward the brain and heart. This helps preserve oxygen when breathing stops. The reflex varies between people, yet it can be surprisingly noticeable even in ordinary conditions. Free divers train it to stay calm during long submersions. Clinicians also use related techniques to help slow certain rapid heart rhythms. The fascinating part is how quickly the body changes its priorities based on one decision. You stop breathing and the nervous system begins rationing. This is mind over matter in a literal sense. A conscious choice triggers a deep automatic program. It reminds you that you carry survival circuitry that can still be accessed on demand, and it can alter heart rhythm in seconds. Splashing cold water on the face can calm a racing pulse. A sudden wash of cold on the face can feel like hitting a reset switch. The skin around the eyes, nose, and cheeks is linked to reflex pathways that influence heart rate. Cold stimulation there can activate parts of the dive response, which can slow the pulse and reduce the feeling of runaway arousal. People sometimes discover this during panic or after intense exercise, when cool water brings rapid relief. It is not only distraction, it is a physiological signal that shifts autonomic balance. This is why some anxiety skills include a brief cold splash or a cool pack on the face. The technique is simple, yet the body takes it seriously. It also shows how specific the nervous system can be. Temperature on the face can influence cardiovascular control more than temperature on many other areas. That specificity can feel almost magical until you remember it is ancient biology. The mind chooses the water, and the body changes its rhythm. Counting slowly can steady speech by pacing brain timing circuits. When nerves rise, speech often speeds up. Words pile on words and breathing struggles to keep up. Counting slowly creates an external rhythm that the brain can synchronize with. It forces pauses that give the breath room to land. Those pauses also give the language system time to plan the next phrase, which reduces stumbling. Many public speaking coaches teach slow counting before a talk or silent counting between points for this reason. The effect is not just performance, it changes physiology. A slower pace reduces arousal, and it signals safety to the nervous system. It can also change how listeners respond, since calm pacing makes you seem more confident. Over time, practicing slow speech can become a habit, so you do not need to count consciously. The fascinating part is how mechanical it can be. A simple number rhythm can reach into the brain's timing circuits and reorganize expression. Speech becomes steadier because the brain has a metronome. Singing can lengthen exhalation and ease breathlessness. Singing turns breathing into a structured flow. Melodies require longer exhalations, and those exhalations can reduce air hunger by slowing the breathing pattern. The body also receives vibration through the chest and throat, which can feel soothing and grounding. Choir singers often learn to manage breath efficiently without thinking about it. That skill can carry over into daily life, especially for people who tend to breathe shallowly under stress. Singing also involves posture and a steady jaw, which can reduce tension in the upper chest. There is an emotional layer too. Songs can shift mood quickly, and mood influences breathing. Some pulmonary rehabilitation programs use singing practices to support breathing control and confidence. It is not a replacement for medical treatment. It is a tool that uses rhythm and sound to guide physiology. The wonder is that a human art form doubles as breath training. You sing a phrase, and your lungs learn a calmer pattern. The immune system listens to the brain stress hormones daily. Your immune cells do not work in silence. They constantly receive chemical updates from the nervous system, including stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline, in short, bursts. This can be useful. It mobilizes energy and shifts immune priorities as if injury might be near. When stress becomes constant, the message changes the balance of immune activity in ways that can be unhelpful. Information signaling can rise or fall at the wrong times, and the body can become less efficient at repair. Researchers study this two-way link because it explains why stress can influence everything from recovery to susceptibility. It also explains why calm routines can feel like medicine. Sleep, steady meals, and social safety can send a different signal to immune cells. The mind does not directly command every immune decision, yet it shapes the environment. Those decisions are made within your thoughts become chemistry, and chemistry becomes immune behavior. Loneliness can raise inflammatory markers as if preparing for injury. Loneliness is not only a feeling, it can be interpreted by the brain as a risk state, like being without protection in a dangerous world. When that happens, the body may shift toward higher baseline inflammation. Researchers have found links between social isolation and inflammatory markers, in some studies suggesting the immune system may behave as if wounds are more likely. This makes evolutionary sense. If you are alone, help may be far away, so the body prepares for harm by keeping defenses ready. The problem is that modern loneliness can be chronic, and chronic inflammation is costly. It can affect energy, sleep quality, pain, sensitivity, and mood. The most striking part is how invisible the trigger can be. You can look fine on the outside, while your immune system is acting like it expects trouble. Connection can reverse the message. A supportive conversation, a shared meal, or a sense of belonging can signal safety and reduce the body's need for constant readiness. Compassion practice can change brain responses to others' suffering. Compassion is not only a personality trait, it can be trained like a skill. In compassion-based practices, people rehearse caring attention and the wish to reduce suffering, starting with themselves and expanding outward over time. Brain imaging studies suggest changes in how people respond to distress in others. Some show less overwhelm and more regulated engagement. That matters because empathy without regulation can turn into burnout. Compassion adds warmth and steadiness that help you stay present without drowning. People often report that suffering becomes more understandable rather than more frightening. This can change behavior. You may become more likely to help and less likely to shut down. There is also a physical dimension. Compassion practice can lower stress responses that would otherwise tighten the chest and shorten the breath. The fascinating idea is that caring can become a nervous system state. You are not forcing kindness. You are training a calmer way of meeting pain, and the brain adapts to that training. Gratitude journaling can improve sleep quality in some studies. Many people think sleep is controlled only by the body, yet the mind sets the stage. Gratitude journaling works by changing what the brain reviews at bedtime. Instead of replaying threats and unfinished tasks, you practice noticing what went well and what felt supportive. That shift can reduce rumination, which is a common thief of sleep. Some studies link gratitude practices with better sleep quality and fewer nighttime awakenings. The results vary, and the effect is not guaranteed. The mechanism is plausible. A calmer mind lowers arousal, and lower arousal supports deeper rest. Gratitude also changes emotion tone. It can replace urgency with safety, and safety is a powerful sleep signal. This is not about pretending life is perfect. It is about guiding attention toward stability so the nervous system can stand down. When the brain stops scanning for danger, the body often follows with slower breathing, softer muscles, and easier sleep onset. Mindfulness can reduce rumination by loosening attention loops. Rumination is the mind's habit of chewing the same thought until it feels like truth. Mindfulness trains a different relationship with thought. Instead of merging with the story, you practice noticing the story as an event that rises and falls. That small shift changes attention. Thoughts become objects you can watch rather than tunnels you must enter. Over time, this can reduce the group of repetitive thinking, especially at night or during stress. People often describe more space between a trigger and their reaction. That space matters because it interrupts automatic spirals. Mindfulness also teaches you to feel sensations without immediate interpretation, which can reduce anxiety-driven monitoring. The practice is not empty relaxation. It is training in how attention moves. Brain studies often find differences in networks involved in self-focus and regulation among long-term practitioners. Though individual results vary, the larger wonder is simple. By practicing where you place attention, you change what your mind repeats, and that can change what your body feels. Attention training can lessen tinnitus distress without changing the sound. Tinnitus can feel unbearable because it hijacks attention. The sound may be steady, yet distress rises when the brain treats it as a threat that must be solved. Attention training aims to change that relationship. Instead of fighting the sound, you practice shifting focus away from it and back again on purpose. This teaches the brain that you have choices. Over time, the sound may still exist, but it becomes less central. It turns into background rather than an alarm. Some therapies use structured exercises that pair relaxation with sound exposure, so the brain learns safety in its presence. This is not pretending the sound is gone. It is changing the meaning assigned to it when the sound stops being evaluated as danger. Stress responses drop, muscles loosen, sleep can improve, and the sound becomes less intrusive. The fascinating point is that suffering is not always tied to intensity. It is often tied to attention. When attention becomes flexible to stress, often shrinks even if the signal remains. Pain catastrophizing predicts suffering better than injury size. Two people can have similar injuries and very different experiences of pain. One reason is catastrophizing, which is a pattern of thinking that expects the worst and treats pain as proof of danger. This mental stance increases fear, and fear makes the nervous system more protective. Muscles tighten, attention narrows, and the brain becomes hyper-alert to every sensation. Pain then feels more intense and more persistent. Catastrophizing also steals hope, which reduces willingness to move and recover. Clinicians track it because it predicts disability and distress across many conditions. The good news is that it is modifiable. Education, cognitive therapy, and graded movement can teach the brain that pain is not always harm. When the mind stops predicting catastrophe, the body often reduces its alarm. This does not mean pain is imaginary. It means interpretation can amplify it in mind of a matter. The story you tell about pain can become part of the pain itself. Chronic pain can persist after tissues heal due to sensitization. Sometimes the injury is gone, yet the pain remains. This can happen when the nervous system becomes sensitized. Sensitization means nerves and brain circuits respond more strongly than they should, like an alarm that keeps ringing after the fire is out. Signals that were once harmless can start to feel painful, and painful signals can feel bigger than expected. The brain may also become protective about movement, creating stiffness and guarding the dad's discomfort. This is why chronic pain can be confusing and frightening. People search for damage that is no longer there. Researchers emphasize that persistent pain can be a disease of the nervous system, not a sign of ongoing injury. Bad framing changes treatment. It shifts focus toward retraining sensitivity. Through movement education and gradual exposure to safe activity, the body learns safety again over time. The wonder is that pain is a perception built by the brain for protection. When the protection system is stuck, the experience can persist. When it is retrained, the experience can soften. The brain can learn pain, then unlearn it with retraining. Pain pathways strengthen with repetition. Like any other learned circuit, pain is present for weeks or months. The brain becomes better producing the experience quickly. It learns the pattern of fear, tension, and attention that surrounds the sensation. This does not mean the person is choosing pain. It means the nervous system has practiced it. The hopeful truth is that learning can run in reverse. Retraining approaches teach safety through gradual movement, improved body confidence, and reduced threat interpretation. People learn to distinguish sensation from danger, and the brain learns to stop overreacting. Some programs use gentle exposure to feared activities, so the body can collect new evidence. Others focus on changing how the brain predicts pain during daily tasks. Progress can feel slow at first because the old pathway is familiar and efficient. Yet many people report that flare UPS become less scary and less frequent over time. The mind over matter story here is profound. The brain is plastic and pain is partly a learned output. With patience, the brain can learn a different response. Exposure therapy rewires fear by teaching safety through repetition. Fear learns quickly. One bad experience can stamp a situation with danger. Exposure therapy uses the brain's learning ability in a careful, structured way. You face the feared cue in small steps, while staying safe, and safety becomes the new lesson. Over repeated sessions, the brain stops predicting catastrophe and starts predicting survivability. This is not flooding someone with terror. It is gradual training that keeps the nervous system inside a tolerable range. The goal is not to erase fear forever. The goal is to reduce the false alarm, so life becomes larger again. Exposure is used for phobias, panic, and trauma-related triggers, often with strong evidence behind it. The fascinating part is what it proves about the brain. Fear is not only a feeling, it is a prediction. When the prediction is updated, the body's response changes, heart rate spikes, less avoidance loosens, and the mind regains options. Repetition teaches safety in the same way repetition once taught fear. The runner's high mixes endocannabinoids and endorphins, not magic. For decades, people spoke about the runner's high as if it were mysterious or mythical. Today, neuroscience paints a clearer picture. Sustained exercise triggers the release of endorphins, which reduce pain perception and endocannabinoids, which can cross the blood-brain barrier and directly influence mood. These chemicals work together to create feelings of calm clarity and even mild euphoria. Unlike adrenaline, this state is not frantic. It is steady and warm, often described as effortless motion or mental quiet. That is why the effect tends to appear after a certain duration rather than at the start of a workout. The brain is responding to sustained effort by rewarding persistence. Not everyone experiences it the same way, and intensity matters less than consistency. The fascinating part is that this uplifting state is built into human biology. Movement unlocks chemistry designed to make endurance feel meaningful rather than punishing. Exercise can lift mood by raising brain-derived growth signals. Exercise does more than burn energy. It sends growth signals through the brain. One of the most studied is brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which supports neuron health and communication. When this signal rises, brain cells become more adaptable and resilient. Many researchers link this process to improvements in mood focus and stress tolerance. It helps explain why regular movement can reduce symptoms of depression and anxiety for some people. The change is not instant, and it is not guaranteed for everyone, but the trend is strong enough to influence treatment guidelines. Exercise also improves blood flow to the brain, delivering oxygen and nutrients more efficiently. Together, these changes create a more flexible neural environment. Thoughts may feel less stuck, and emotions may recover more quickly after stress. The wonder is that moving the body can change the brain's growth. Landscape motion becomes a message that says adaptation is needed, and the brain responds by becoming more adaptable. Nature walks reduce rumination and quiet stress-related brain activity. A walk through trees or open landscapes can feel different from a walk down a busy street. Brain imaging studies suggest there is a real reason time in natural settings is associated with reduced activity in brain. Regions linked to repetitive, self-focused thinking. Rumination often keeps stress alive by replaying worries without resolution. Nature appears to interrupt that loop. The sensory environment is rich, but not demanding. Leaves move light shifts and sounds very gently, giving attention something to rest on without effort. This can lower mental noise and allow emotional tension to ease. Even short exposures can have an effect, especially when phones are put away. The benefit is not about exercise alone, since the pace can be slow. It is about context. The brain evolved in natural environments, and those cues may signal safety and availability rather than urgency. A simple walk outdoors can change how thoughts circulate, turning repetition into release. Sunlight can shift serotonin pathways and improve daytime alertness. Morning light is one of the strongest signals the brain receives about time. When sunlight reaches the eyes, it influences serotonin activity, which supports mood focus and wakefulness. This signal also helps set the internal clock that controls sleep timing later that night. Without enough daylight, especially early in the day, alertness can lag and mood can dip. This is why dark winters can feel heavier for many people. Light therapy is sometimes used to support energy and emotional balance in those conditions. The effect does not require staring at the sun. Simply being outdoors or near a bright window can help. Sunlight also improves contrast and color perception, which keeps the brain engaged. The fascinating detail is how indirect the process feels. You are not choosing to feel awake. Light enters the system and quietly tunes chemistry and timing. Daylight becomes a guide that keeps the brain aligned with the outside world. Warm baths can trigger sleepiness by nudging body temperature rhythms. Sleep is tied closely to body temperature. As bedtime approaches, cold temperature naturally begins to drop. A warm bath can support this process in an unexpected way. The heat causes blood vessels near the skin to open, which allows warmth to dissipate once you leave the bath. As heat escapes, core temperature falls more quickly, and the brain receives a signal that night has arrived. This can create a wave of drowsiness within an hour. Warm water also relaxes muscles and slows breathing, which further supports rest. Many cultures have long used bathing rituals before sleep without knowing the physiology behind them. The effect works best when the bath is not too late, giving the body time to cool. The beauty is in the timing. You use warmth to encourage cooling, and cooling invites sleep. A simple sensory experience aligns with a deep biological rhythm. Rituals reduce anxiety by giving the brain predictable structure. Anxiety thrives on uncertainty. Rituals counter that by creating reliable patterns. When actions follow a familiar sequence, the brain spends less energy predicting what comes next. This can lower background stress and increase a sense of control. Rituals appear in many forms, from bedtime routines to pre-game habits. The specific actions matter less than their consistency. Over time, the sequence itself becomes calming. The brain learns that this pattern leads to safety or completion. Even small rituals can have an effect, like making tea the same way each evening. In moments of high-stress, rituals anchor attention and reduce decision overload. They also mark transitions, which helps the mind shift states. The fascinating aspect is that rituals work even when we know they are symbolic. The nervous system responds to structure at a level below belief. Predictability becomes comfort, and comfort reduces anxiety. Superstitions can boost performance by increasing perceived control. Superstitions often look irrational from the outside, yet they persist for a reason. Believing that a certain action brings luck can increase the sense of control in uncertain situations. That sense of control matters. It reduces anxiety and frees mental resources for the task at hand. Studies have shown that people sometimes perform better when they believe a lucky charm is helping them. The charm does not change physics, but it changes mindset. Confidence rises, hesitation drops, and effort becomes smoother. Athletes are famous for these habits, yet the effect appears in everyday tasks too. The key is not the superstition itself, but what it does to attention and emotion. When the brain feels supported, it stops scanning for failure. The fascinating truth is that belief can act as a performance aid, not by altering reality, but by altering how fully you engage with it. A calm mental script can reduce choking under pressure. Under pressure, the mind often turns inward and overanalyzes movements that normally run automatically. This can disrupt timing and coordination, leading to choking. A calm mental script offers an alternative focus. Instead of thinking about outcome or mechanics, script guides attention to simple cues like rhythm or intention. This keeps conscious thought from interfering with trained skills. Athletes, musicians, and speakers often rehearse these scripts in advance so they feel familiar. Under stress, the script acts like a track the mind can follow. When nerves rise, breathing often slows as well, which steadies the body. The power of the script is not distraction, it is direction. Attention stays engaged, but not entangled. The fascinating part is that a few chosen words can protect complex motor skills from collapse. Language becomes a stabilizing tool that keeps performance aligned with practice rather than fear. Athletes sometimes see the girl bigger when they feel confident. Confidence can subtly alter perception. In some studies, athletes performing well report that targets appear larger or closer, golf holes look wider, and baseballs seem easier to track. This does not mean the eyes change. It means the brain's interpretation of visual information shifts with emotional state. When confidence is high, attention is less cluttered by doubt, and perception may feel clearer and more generous. This can improve timing and decision-making. When confidence drops, the opposite can happen. Targets feel smaller and margins feel tighter. The effect highlights how perception is shaped by readiness and expectation. Vision is not just a camera feed, it is a construction influenced by emotion and memory. The fascinating insight is that belief does not merely affect effort, it can affect what the world seems to offer. Confidence can make opportunity feel larger before a single movement begins. Anxiety can make time feel slower because attention spikes during anxious moments. Seconds can feel stretched and heavy. This happens because attention becomes sharply focused on the present moment, especially on potential threat. When more information is processed per second, time appears to slow. The brain is sampling the environment, intensely creating a denser memory of the interval. Later, that density is interpreted as longer duration. This effect can be useful in emergencies where rapid assessment matters. In everyday anxiety, it can feel unpleasant and exhausting. Waiting becomes harder and discomfort feels endless. The experience is not imagined. It reflects how the brain tracks events. When anxiety fades and attention broadens, time often seems to speed up again. The fascinating detail is that time perception is flexible. It bends with emotional state. By calming attention through breathing or grounding, people can sometimes ease the sensation of dragged-out moments. The clock stays the same. Experience does not. The brain can suppress movement during sleep to protect the body. While you sleep, especially during vivid dreaming, your brain becomes highly active. Stories unfold, emotions rise, and imagined movement can feel real, yet your body usually stays still. This is because the brain actively dampens signals sent to the muscles, creating a state called sleep paralysis, which is protective rather than frightening. Without it, people would physically act out dreams, sometimes with dangerous consequences. In rare cases where this system fails, sleepers may kick punch or leap from bed while dreaming. The remarkable part is that paralysis is not passive. It is an active command sent from the brainstem to the spinal cord. Your brain knows you are dreaming, even if you do not, and it chooses safety over expression. Each night, consciousness and restraint work together quietly, allowing imagination to roam, while the body rests safely in place. Parkinson's shows chemistry. We can alter willpower and motion together. Parkinson's disease reveals how deeply movement motivation are intertwined. The condition is marked by changes in dopamine, a chemical often associated with reward and desire. As dopamine levels drop, people do not only struggle to move smoothly, they may also struggle to initiate movement at all. Tasks that once felt automatic can feel effortful or unreachable. This is not laziness or lack of will. It is chemistry reshaping how intention becomes action. Some individuals with Parkinson's can suddenly move fluidly in emergencies, or when emotionally stimulated, a phenomenon called paradoxical movement. This shows that capability is still present, but access to it is altered. The disease demonstrates that willpower is not separate from biology. Motivation and motion share the same pathways. When chemistry shifts, the feeling of choice can shift to reminding us that effort is not purely mental. The rubber hand illusion proves body ownership is negotiable. In a classic experiment, a fake hand is placed in front of a person while the real hand is hidden. Both the real hand and the fake one are stroked at the same time. After a short while, many people begin to feel as if the rubber hand is their own. If the fake hand is threatened, they may flinch. The solution shows that body ownership is not fixed. The brain decides what belongs to you by combining sight, touch, and timing. When those signals line up, the brain accepts the object as part of the self. This process usually works flawlessly, but the illusion reveals how flexible it truly is. Your sense of me is a construction, not a constant. The boundary of the self can shift based on sensory evidence. What feels deeply personal and permanent is actually continuously negotiated by the brain. Virtual reality can reduce burn pain by stealing attention. Severe burn pain is difficult to treat because it is intense and persistent. Virtual reality has emerged as a surprising ally. When patients enter immersive digital worlds during painful procedures, many report significant pain reduction. The brain becomes absorbed in navigating icy landscapes or playful environments, leaving fewer resources available to process pain signals. This is not simple distraction. Brain imaging suggests that attention and emotion circuits are genuinely redirected. Pain pathways quiet when the brain is fully engaged elsewhere. The effect is strong enough that some hospitals use virtual reality alongside medication. This shows how competitive perception can be. Pain is not only about signals from injured tissue, it is also about what the brain prioritizes. When attention is captured deeply enough, suffering can soften. Technology becomes a tool for redirecting consciousness itself. Focusing on purpose can lower perceived effort during endurance tasks. During long, demanding efforts, fatigue is not only muscular, it is also interpretive. The brain constantly evaluates whether the effort is worth continuing. When a clear purpose is present, that evaluation can change. Athletes often report that effort feels lighter when tied to meaning such as finishing for a teammate or reaching a personal milestone. Studies suggest that purpose can alter how effort signals a process, reducing perceived strain. At the same physical workload, the body is doing the same work, yet the experience differs. Purpose gives the brain a reason to tolerate discomfort without escalating alarm. This does not remove limits, but it shifts how close those limits feel. Meaning acts like a buffer between sensation and suffering. When the mind knows why it is enduring, the body often follows with greater resilience. Choir singing synchronizes heartbeats across people through shared breathing. When people sing together, something subtle and remarkable happens. Their breathing patterns begin to align because breathing influences heart rhythm. Heart rates can begin to synchronize as well. Studies of choir show this shared physiological rhythm emerging over time. The group becomes a coordinated system, not just musically, but biologically. This synchronization may contribute to the feelings of connection and calm many singers describe. It is not only emotional bonding, it is physical alignment. Shared rhythm reduces unpredictability, which lowers stress. The body senses cooperation and safety. This may explain why communal singing appears in cultures across history. It binds groups at a level deeper than words. Breath by breath, bodies move together and hearts quietly fall into step. Group chanting can lower stress by creating predictable sound patterns. Chanting produces simple, repetitive sound structures the brain can easily anticipate. Predictability matters because it reduces uncertainty, which is a major driver of stress. As voices repeat the same pattern, breathing often slows and becomes more regular. The nervous system responds by easing arousal. Chanting also limits internal dialogue. The mind has less room to wander into worry when sound fills awareness. In groups, chanting adds another layer. Shared timing creates social safety, which further calms the body. This combination of rhythm, repetition, and connection can produce measurable drops in stress markers. Chanting is found in spiritual, cultural, and therapeutic settings across the world. Its persistence suggests it works not because of belief alone, but because it directly shapes brain rhythms. The mind settles into the sound, and the body follows. Single compassionate thought can soften your face and pulse. Compassion is not abstract. When you think of someone with warmth or care, your body often responds immediately. Facial muscles relax, the jaw loosens, and the eyes soften. Heart rate may slow slightly, and breathing can deepen. These changes occur because compassion activates calming pathways linked to social safety. The nervous system interprets caring thoughts as signals that threat is low. This can happen even when the compassion is directed inward. Self-directed kindness can produce similar physiological shifts over time. Repeated compassionate thoughts may make calm states easier to access. This shows that emotion is not just something you feel, it is something your body enacts. One thought can change posture, expression, and rhythm. Compassion becomes a physical state, not just a moral one. Learning to notice sensations can stop panic from snowballing. Panic often escalates because sensations are misinterpreted as danger. A racing heart is read as catastrophe. Tightness becomes proof of threat. Learning to notice sensations without judgment interrupts this process. Instead of reacting, you observe. This creates space between sensation and meaning. Therapy is to teach interoceptive awareness. Help people experience bodily signals as information rather than warnings. When sensations are allowed to rise and fall, they often lose intensity. The nervous system learns that discomfort is tolerable. Over time, the brain updates its predictions and stops escalating so quickly. Panic relies on feedback loops. Awareness breaks those loops. The skill is not suppression, it is curiosity. By staying with sensation, you show the brain that safety remains. Panic cannot grow without fear feeding it. Small daily mindset shifts can compound into measurable brain change. The brain changes through repetition, not revelation. Small shifts practiced daily can accumulate into meaningful structural and functional change. This is the principle behind neuroplasticity. When you repeatedly refrain stress, practice attention control, or respond differently to discomfort, you strengthen new neural pathways. Over time, those pathways become easier to access. Brain imaging studies show changes linked to consistent mental training. Even when daily practices are brief, the effect is gradual and often invisible at first. That makes it easy to underestimate. Yet weeks and months of small changes can reshape how the brain responds. By default, the compound effect matters more than intensity. A gentle practice repeated often can outperform dramatic effort. Applied rarely, the mind is not transformed in moments. It is sculpted quietly through what you do most days. As we come to the end of our journey through mind over matter, you can almost feel the theme settling into place again and again. We saw that your experience is not only shaped by the world outside you, but also by the interpretations, expectations, and rhythms inside you. Belief can ease pain, fear can narrow perception. A single breath can shift your pulse. Even a simple ritual can calm the brain by making life feel predictable. We wandered through the body's hidden conversations, from the gaps, quiet signals, to the way the brain edits sensation into something you can live inside. We visited the strange flexibility of the self, where a rubber hand can feel like yours, and where virtual worlds can soften real pain by borrowing your attention. We listened to the chemistry of movement, where endurance releases relief, and where purpose can make effort feel lighter. We even stepped into shared human rhythms, where singing and chanting can bring bodies into sync, as if a group can become one steady wave of breath. And now you do not need to hold any of it tightly. Let it drift through you like a calm current. Let your shoulders drop. Let your jaw unclench. Feel the slow work of gravity, helping you settle into whatever is supporting you. If thoughts arrive, let them pass by like quiet footsteps in a hallway, noticed, then gone. If you enjoyed this exploration, you might like the next video on your screen waiting. If you happen to still be awake, and if you feel like it, you can like, subscribe, or leave a gentle comment so more sleepy minds can find their way here. Sleep well and good night. I don't want to be ready for me.